we found a really interesting nugget that card members who were being acquired in the airport were actually some of the lower spending card members because they were using it for that moment, what we called Project Marie Kondo, where we stripped out all of the complexity that we could in order to make the baseline journeys really easily maintained.
Most people don't realize this, but every single year, American Express processes about $1.5 trillion. That's about 6% of the US GDP for context. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Amy Gindikin. She spent the last 15 years leading lifecycle at American Express, specifically the consumer onboarding division, managing like 20 different cards, 10 different marketing channels. Most of these conversations, take place behind the scenes. At events or in DMs, but Amy was kind enough to let me share this conversation with the community. There's so many golden nuggets in here that you can take and apply to your own program. With that, here's the conversation. It's a good one.
Just structurally, Amex operates differently from a lot of those other businesses in that it's a closed loop network, as we would call it. So that's both the issuer side, so the card issuer bank role, like a Citi or a Chase, as well as the merchant processor side. So Visa and MasterCard being top competitors there. And what was really unique about that closed loop system is that it offered the opportunity to get a richness of customer data and allow us to really understand the full cycle of customer behavior, to then use that to deepen relationships over time. And then the other thing I would say about Amex that's different is, while I would say I'm a financial services marketer, I think Amex really operates as a lifestyle brand, particularly on the card side of the business. And there's just an elevated way we show up as a brand with our customers in stretching beyond just a financial payments product. Certainly, Amex is a payments leader, but it's that elevated, the platinum card experience where you get your dining and your travel and your entertainment and all at sort of that premium way wrapped up in the Amex umbrella. So two key differences, I think, than some of the other financial services competitors out there.
So I have to ask, are you a big Amex user?
I think in the more than 15 years there, have had every card. Was just traveling extensively in Europe, and used my Chase Visa a little more often than I'd like to admit. But I would, every opportunity I could. I'm an Amex loyalist and would look for those opportunities to get more points and get more bonuses as a result of the perks that come with being an Amex card member.
So I imagine, especially on lifecycle, probably one of the biggest use cases is, one, acquiring new customers and getting them to actually use the card. Can you talk to me a little bit about how y'all thought about the acquisition side to the activation side and the overall kind of funnel, what that looked like from a life cycle standpoint?
Acquisition has always been and will continue to be a massive engine for growth. And much of that is coming from the prospect side. They're, individuals who do not have an existing relationship with American Express. And you can imagine all of the standard types of channels in that space. Your paid search and paid media, direct mail. But a big area of card volume was actually coming through co-brand relationships as well. I spent quite a bit of my time in the partnership space. And you think about a Delta or a Hilton, and those customers actually being first and foremost customers of the partner and then joining in the Amex family from there. And so I think important to understand the prospect nature as you head down the line. And one of my favorite roles was actually leading onboarding and activation from that handoff from the acquisition moment to becoming a card member. But the other thing to consider is that there were quite a lot of people coming in from that acquisition path who already had existing Amex relationships. So one of the most important things that my team did in the time that I led the onboarding and activation team was begin to consider, how do you onboard someone differently who's new to franchise versus new to card product? And how do you vary that onboarding journey for someone who maybe needs a full orientation to, say, a platinum card with dozens of benefits and a relatively high annual fee relative to other cards out there? And how does that look different from someone who's coming in on a no-fee product or a more baseline product versus someone who's coming from a co-brand partner and maybe applied at an airport to get the 2 checked bags free on a Delta card? And, how do they want to engage with Amex up over time? So in the time that I was in that role, we really started to think about how do you start to vary the journeys as a result of the context the customer would have at the moment that they became a card member. And then how do you pull that through the first 30 days, the first 6 months and year, the moment of renewal and beyond? So it was multi-channel, and also starting to think about, well, I sat in a marketing organization, needed to partner really, really closely with our servicing teams, the teams that issued the cards directly, the teams that owned the digital channels where you would activate a card and confirm that you received it and so forth. So lots of touch points to bring together to have that holistic journey and handshake that came from acquisition to being a card member.
You mentioned, the kind of different milestones along the way. Were there specific things y'all were looking for users to do that, were indicative of them having a high propensity to become a loyal customer? Like, I'll give you an example. We talked to a lot of retailers, and a huge use case for them is second purchase. If they can get someone to purchase a second time, they know they're much more likely to keep shopping with the brand in the future. So I'm curious, what is the equivalent of that in the fintech world?
I think it probably varies by banks and types of product. But at Amex, I can speak to the fact that, I think that it was the depth more than the specific behaviors in a lot of ways. How deeply are you taking advantage of all of the benefits on your card and how quickly? So while I was in that onboarding role, I actually had an opportunity to partner with our data science team and do an analysis to understand, what did our best customers today do if you rewound their behavior to their earliest days of being a card member? So looking back several years, what did their first year of tenure look like relative to others who were sort of mid-tier performance and those who may be attrited by the time that we did the analysis? Or weren't still spending, and what behaviors did they engage with early on? Obviously, correlation is not causation, but how can you then start to inform the strategy of an onboarding journey as a result of understanding what are the ways that you can get customers to really engage? And those things might be using Amex offers or spending across a diversity of industries. Using a card a certain number of times. It really varied depending on the card type and the number of benefits available. But I would say the common theme was a deep experience and a wide array of usages of the card versus just, putting a certain type of purchase on it.
Was there ever, an insight or anything you uncovered during your time there? You were just like, wow, I did not know people spent money that way, or just, something that blew your mind?
I think a really interesting one, if I use the example of applying for an American Express card in a Delta airport. One of the most compelling benefits of the Delta co-brands is the ability to get 2 checked bags free when you're checking in at the airport. And so that's a compelling value proposition offer to tell someone as they're about to shell out, whatever it is these days, $40 per bag, that you can check into for free. It practically pays for the annual fee right there. And so we found a really interesting nugget that card members who were being acquired in the airport were actually some of the lower spending card members because they were using it for that moment. They weren't in that busy moment of checking their bags in to get to their flight, engaging with all of the full pitch for the card And we learned through that opportunity, that nugget of information, that we could go back afterwards and make sure through an onboarding and early engagement journey that we could better educate about the full value of the card and what they get beyond just that moment of getting it in the airport. It's sort of the same idea of applying for a card in a retail establishment to get the 0% in that moment. And then why would you use it again? You have to understand what else is out there. And that phenomenon doesn't typically exist with Amex in ways where people are getting a financial product, they're learning all about it. But this was a really unique case that the data showed us. There was more work to do in terms of onboarding them with a full understanding of the value of the card.
I love that. Yeah, helping the value realization aspect. It's something that I think a lot of us marketers really take for granted. We're so easy to index on, discounts and coupons. And it's just like, our product can really speak for itself. It does have a lot of value that someone should use it for.
Yeah. And actually, I would just say in that space, I think financial services products, and particularly ones that hold an annual fee, you hope you're getting someone who really has done a little bit more of the homework and understands what they're getting out of that product. But also acquisition offers are really rich. And if, I learned in my earliest days working with a tele team that you can't just lean on only the acquisition offer, because then, they get the bonus and then they want to cancel. And so educating on the value of the card holistically beyond the acquisition offer becomes the cherry on top versus the reason for applying. And that job is really important for marketers throughout the life cycle.
I'm curious on the partnership side. You mentioned the Deltas. You also, or American Express also is, they partner with Marriott too, right? I've always wondered on the back end, I don't know, how do these partnerships work? It seems a lot to go into it, and obviously every side has to benefit in some way. Are there any sort of co-branded campaigns? I don't know. It's an area I just don't know enough about. I'm fascinated by it.
I think it's really an interesting space, and I spent 5 years in that space, particularly working with Hilton and a couple of other co-brands here and there, but Hilton for 5 years. And it's interesting because it really is a place where, in almost all instances, the customer is a loyalist of the co-brand partner first. And you look to a financial partner, credit card partner of a co-brand to close the gaps of the loyalty program from the underlying co-brand partner. So it was well known that Hilton points customers didn't really understand all of the, what is the value of a point? What can I do with it? And, Hilton's strategy was, let's give the customers even more points. But if you don't know what that gets you, it's harder to visualize the value of the card. And so we really worked in my tenure on that team on embedding relevant offers and moments. So a booking path is a perfect example. As you're booking a hotel stay, can you get money off of that stay with a statement credit? Can you get a free night or 2 free nights? And how do you embed that both in an offer and also in what you get as a value proposition of the card? And so it's in those cases, I mentioned Delta and the checked bag free. It's a pain point for Delta customers to have to pay for checked bags. So if the co-brand can then close that gap on behalf of the relationship across the two partners, it's meaningful for Delta, for Amex, and also for the card member.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So one of the things I'm really curious on is the actual execution campaign side of things. Did you find it was a lot of triggered journeys and milestones, batch and blast campaigns? Just curious, how did you think about that in your time there? Did it evolve in the 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my life cycle roles, it was very often triggered campaigns. And from a structural perspective, my team often would lean on, email, direct mail, because those were channels that we had full control over versus, getting prioritized messages on a web or a mobile app. Not to say that we didn't have an integrated view of those, but we had more direct ownership over the email and direct mail channels. And, I think the triggers were challenging because you need them to be real time and relevant and for the right audience. And, I think we used data where we could on that. And we actually had a moment when I came onto the onboarding team where there was a push towards building these really intricate journeys. We led onboarding and reboarding for more than 20 card products throughout the first 30 plus days of tenure. And each of those required individual communications that had to be maintained and updated as products changed, as moments came about. And so we actually found that it was going to be overly complex to implement really intricate journeys. And the first thing we did successfully was what we called Project Marie Kondo, where we stripped out all of the complexity that we could in order to make the baseline journeys really easily maintained. And then we've looked into where are there moments, where are there specific data points, where are there communications that it was really critical to be custom, and how could we make some of that more modular, easily adaptable to customer need? How could we push to landing pages where we could more easily maintain content and keep it really light in an email? So we got creative about how do you pull all of those different components together in order to have what feels to the customer like a relevant, timely, customized piece of content, but didn't break the team in the process.
Yeah, it's threading that line of over engineering and optimizing for the outcome. And what's interesting, even as you say that about trying to get those really intricate journeys, I'm imagining this is a pre AI world where maybe some of this is a little easier to do now to maybe adapt copy for different segments. But back then, it's like somebody has to go update all of these. It's like a perfect example of this. I recently did a journey breakdown for a big retailer in Texas called Academy. They're like a Dick's Sporting Goods or equivalent. And basically, like once a year, I have to buy socks. I don't know, my socks always wear out. They always get a hole in them. So I go back to Academy and I buy my socks. And it's kind of the only thing I buy from them. But I love socks from them. I went and looked at the transactional email they sent me in 2024 when I bought my socks, and then the same one in 2025. And it was interesting because it was the exact same. No one had updated it in a year. And the recommended products in the email were more socks instead of shoes or something. So I thought that was really funny because if I just bought socks, I probably don't need more socks recommended.
Yeah. I think somebody over there needs to do a case study of how do they get Luke to expand his consideration set of products from Academy.
Actually, while we're on that topic, did you all find there are, when you're looking at and trying to kind of, uncover different segments to monetize or upsell, were there specific overlaps like that you saw? Maybe if they reached a certain spending threshold. How do y'all identify when it's time to, or how did you identify when it was time to maybe push a different offer to someone or a higher tier card?
So there's a lot of secret sauce in that I probably will not share many details around. But you can imagine the richness of Amex data, the sheer volume of millions of customers and their transaction trends, their payment trends, and the suite of additional offerings. We're constantly looking at what's the right customer to offer up the next thing to. And I think what I will say about that is by having a rich loyalty and lifecycle marketing program, it then allows for a deepening of the relationship with the customer to then open up those moments and authentically offer up the next tranche of products in that space, that, without that loyalty being, fostered every day, it feels less authentic and less like there's permission to offer these other products to deepen that relationship.
One thing I'm curious on, I want to double back to, you mentioned direct mail. And I know that is really big in the finance world, but not as big for other industries. That is a world I know nothing about, direct mail. Like, how does that work? From, obviously, you build a journey, you send an email or a push notification or an SMS. Is there an equivalent of that for direct mail? Are y'all building journeys for direct mail to send things to people? And is there a platform you manage direct mail through?
Direct mail I use as a broad term, and obviously there's your acquisition offers. Direct mail is still a really rich space where it's a very premium thing to receive something. People still, as the world moves more digital, actually getting something in the mailbox breaks through the clutter better than it probably did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's absolutely, yeah. I mean, especially if it's done in a compelling way and then blends that physical and digital experience, there's a lot to be said for that. I think direct mail, I also think of in a space of an activation or an onboarding moment. So my team owned the premium welcome kits that went out with the platinum cards, for instance. And so, you think about, you just signed up for a platinum card. It's X hundreds of dollars a year. You have all of these benefits coming your way. And you want to feel special when that thing shows up in your mailbox. And so my team owned the design of that unboxing moment, the beautiful box that it came in and the contents within it. And actually, in the spirit of trying to make things easy to maintain, but still feel really premium and relevant, we actually got rid of all of the content about the card itself inside the box because we had to maintain it and we had to print it and keep the stock on hand. And, every benefit has its set of T's and C's, and keeping all of that up to date was really burdensome and expensive for the team. And so we were able to maintain the premium integrity of that box, remove all of the content, and drive to a digital experience that then was very immersive and let customers really learn about the card in a way that felt special still, but also was way more easily maintained than trying to reprint benefit cards in a box that then sat on a shelf somewhere. And we replaced it actually with a note from the president of the consumer card business to say, welcome to Platinum, and here's the special journey you're about to be on, but allowed for that flexibility over time.
That is so cool. I love that. Yeah, I think it's something we don't think about enough is the actual, I was talking to someone about this the other day of like, we have all these dashboards and things we look at and all of these metrics and KPIs, especially on lifecycle. But the one metric I think would be really helpful that you can't really encompass is just customer happiness. If that goes alongside everything else, I think the brand that comes to mind, especially when you're talking about like the experience side around the product, I just think of Apple when they designed the original iPhone box and the intentional way they build anticipation when you're opening the box. And now every single phone company does their box the same way with the top
right.
down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting.
I mean, you can search YouTube and TikTok for Amex unboxing and see some really amazing videos of people excited to get their card in the mail, which is super rewarding when you own that program and see, people then getting to be excited. To your point, you don't always get to see what happens on the other side of that, and getting to actually see people who film the moment that they get their credit card in the mail is a really unusual but delightful experience as a marketer.
Okay, I'm curious on the technology side of things. You talked a lot on the execution and campaigning, but obviously to do these types of use cases, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, especially for a company of that size. I'm guessing it's probably petabytes of data. I don't even can't even imagine. But yeah, what kind of technology is needed to execute on that scale and in volume to actually deliver personalized experiences?
I think it's fair to say it takes a village. So yeah, I think I was fortunate enough to work with a couple of really excellent MarTech partners, both internal and external to Amex. And we'll give a shout out, Movable Ink and Shift Paradigm, two excellent partners who made it easy. And, I think within Amex, there were the marketing, strategy, and execution teams like my teams were. And then there was a whole world of MarTech internally and the teams that actually made the campaigns happen. But so many different layers involved there. And what I really loved with some of the best vendors that I partnered with was the ability to make it seamless for the marketer and to help navigate all of the teams. From a marketer standpoint, marketers need to be creative. They need to be strategic. They need to be data-driven. Asking them to also be technologists on top of that is a lot. And so having really trusted partners that can help navigate that space and bring to life the vision of the marketing strategy it is critical. And so, I could speak to some of the tools that we use, but I think it's more valuable for me to say, to the MarTech audience out there, the more you can make it turnkey for the marketing teams, the easier it is to get things integrated and off ground. And, I think the best strategy in the world that can't get executed is a waste. And so it's that secret sauce of getting the strategy, the creativity, and then also the tech to bring it to life in a seamless and beneficial way for everybody, so that the customer gets what they need. And I think it's also an added challenge in a financial space, particularly. I can speak to a little bit of the difference from the card side of the business, that bank issuing side versus the merchant side of the business, the processing side, because I worked across both of those. And the nature of the relationship with the customer is fundamentally different, and therefore changes the sort of marketing that you can do. And so from the bank side, the card issuer side of the spectrum, you have a richness of data, but also everything becomes more risky in terms of business risk, because you need to protect individual customer financial data. And it was always a challenge to balance, okay, well, we know so much about them, but what can we actually use for marketing? Versus on the merchant side, it actually was a little bit freer because the relationship is more arm's length. And in many cases, there was also an intermediary in the middle of that, a processor who acquired Amex card members on behalf of, the Amex, MasterCard, Visa, that go out and set up a merchant to process all credit card transactions, Amex being one of them. But there was a middle layer in between Amex and the merchant. And so it allowed for less business risk in the marketing, but less of the personalized information that we had about an individual merchant. And so it actually allowed for more flexibility and creativity from a marketing standpoint, but less data to actually have a really targeted and impactful campaign.
Yeah, that is challenging. There's a quote, I always forget who to attribute my quotes to, but trust is gained in drops and lost in buckets. Oh, I can't imagine, what that is like in financial services, because it's like that's the one area, it impacts every aspect of life. The people managing your money, it's like, how do I buy my groceries? How do I pay my mortgage this month? And you want to just be able to, truthfully, I feel like success for that industry is just the customer not thinking about you at all. It's just working. if they're worried, it's like that is going to have big ripple effect. Like I don't ever think about my bank or my credit card. I just swipe it and it just works.
I mean, the hope is that at a company like Amex, you are thinking about them. The goal is actually daily interactions. There are card members who log in to the app every single day, and they're checking what's the newest Amex offer, what's the newest, Resi restaurant that's available. That lots of premium features in there, and so the hope is, yes, the baseline just works. You absolutely want no friction in that, and then how do you create a more premium, enticing experience that someone's going to want to come back to again and again?
No, totally agree. My usage and like spending habits and purchasing habits are like not indicative of normal society too. So,
well, we know you buy socks every year.
I buy some socks. Yeah. Actually, I was just put on one of those pairs I bought and it had a hole in it. So I'm like, great. I know my time is coming up. So, I mean, you've obviously been working in lifecycle and MarTech for a really long time. I don't know, what has been the biggest change over maybe the last 15 years or in your time at Amex in the industry?
I'll speak to what's coming up and what I see on the horizon. We talked a little bit about AI earlier. And I do think that as marketers, we've always said the holy grail is right message, right time, right customer, right place. And we've had to make a trade-off for a really long time between being able to actually achieve that. And in recent years, there are instances where you could achieve that for a really niche audience versus the places where you still got to bash and blast because it's the only way to get scale. But I think AI is really, for the first time, making the holy grail seem like it's going to be possible. And the opportunity to individualize experiences for each customer in a relevant way and make that achievable for a normal sized team of marketers is what I think is really exciting and on the horizon. And so, I think the shift over the last 10 to 15 years has been an increasing willingness of customers to give up their data in order to get something back that's meaningful. But I think they haven't gotten back as much meaningful content as they might have hoped for the data that they're willing to give up. And I think we're on the cusp of that really changing.
I feel like a lot of people aren't even thinking in this paradigm yet, especially talking to a lot of folks in MarTech in lifecycle. Yeah, it's curious to get your thoughts on that. Is this something like this new category of AI decisioning? I guess, do you see that as the future of marketing? Like, should people be looking into this rapidly to adopt it?
Yeah, I think they have to be. I think, it's, I don't know how you get away from it. I think the future of marketing, just the future of work is going to be so fundamentally different 3, 5, certainly 10 years from now that it's really hard to even imagine. And I sort of put the tools for a marketer into 2 broad buckets. The first being about just efficiency and productivity of the day job, all of the tasks that just are tedious and challenging for a marketer to execute on. And then also the other side of that, the marketing specific strategy and the content creation and the ability to be more productive. So I think there's an efficiency side of it and a productivity side of it on AI. But I think we're still in a place where you still need domain experts and strategy experts to really understand what do we do with all of this stuff that an AI model spits out. I do wonder what's going to happen 5, 10 years from now. Like in today's world, we're training the newest crop of marketers on that grunt work, which is, it's tedious, but it's often how you learn. And so, I think we need to be really mindful about how we transition from a world where the grunt work isn't getting done by people anymore, how are you making sure that people still have the ability to critically analyze and create net new content in a way that isn't just AI slop, and that helps them really learn and continue to be marketers at their core? And so I'm really passionate about shaping the future of how marketing evolves through an AI forward approach, but also with very human centered viewpoint as well. So there's pros and cons to that. That people leadership is something that is so rewarding and is something that the sooner you learn it and the principles around that, the better. But I do think we can't lose the how do you understand whether something that comes back is meaningful? What do you mean to add? Like I just built my first custom GPT. Super amazing. I am not a tech expert, and so incredibly rewarding for me personally to have built my own custom GPT that I actually asked ChatGPT to help me write a prompt to then create my own GPT. And then I asked it, well, what are the ways you can help me do my job more effectively? And got that back. But because I know the job and because I know what I'm here to do, I was able to say, well, this is missing, or what about this? Or no, I wouldn't want to do that. Here's how I want this to come back. And I'd like to think that that's 20 years of marketing experience informing that tool now that I will absolutely put to use and be more efficient and productive as a result of having it. But without the legwork, the grunt work that I put in, I don't know if I would have been able to evaluate it as critically. So I think we need to think hard about how do we make sure that those skills aren't lost. So I just went on a crazy trip, and I was in Europe for more than a month with my dog, and I did all of my travel planning with a dog with ChatGPT. Where can I go? What activities can I do? Where, what are the rules for taking my dog on a plane, a train, and on a boat? And it was amazing. And I don't know how I would have ever come up with all of the things that we did without the help of ChatGPT. But I would say that's my recent and most favorite use case outside of a work context.
Favorite brand from a life cycle perspective? I don't know. It's just somebody who dazzles you with personalization. You're just like, how do they even know that? Or that's such a cool experience.
I think for me, Chewy is the one that really stands out. I think they just do an incredible job of recognizing the moments of pet parent life. And it's a sad example, but I have seen so many examples of, when unfortunately, when you have to say goodbye to a pet, you might have auto ship for food. And that moment of turning off auto ship for your pet's food is so emotional. And Chewy often will send a personalized note and a portrait of the pet for remembrance. And so many moments through the life cycle, but just even to the end, just acknowledging the special relationship between a pet parent and a pet, and doing that in a way that feels authentic and like they really mattered as a customer throughout the whole time.
Yeah, no, I can speak to that from not a Chewy customer, but the pet relationship of just being the one who had to put the last family pet down. It's just not a fun experience. So as much as possible, alleviate that.
Yeah.
It's like if you are there in that moment, you know where they're going to go when you get a new pet. Last two for you, I promise. Most polarizing take in life cycle. Something maybe you have a strong opinion on that people might disagree with.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think that life cycle can be seen as just a vehicle to enable more cross-sell, upsell, more ways to generate revenue. And, I think the real value there is the metric to optimize is lifetime value. And, you said it, or you had a great phrase about loyalty is earned in drips and ruined in buckets. Lost in buckets. Exactly that. Sure. I hadn't heard it before and I really like it. I'm going to steal it. But I think that's exactly it, right? Like when a lifecycle loyalty program is done well, it's creating that ongoing, authentic relationship with a customer. And then when you inject those moments of cross-sell, of upsell, of deepening that relationship, it feels authentic and welcomed versus that ick factor of, they're like, no, like there's nothing worse than a life cycle program done wrong, personalization done wrong. Like I would rather have no personalization than it. Like I have one, I will not call out the brand, but there is one particular brand that does not seem to realize that my last name is my last name and my first name is my first name. And every communication I get, it says, "Hey, Gindikin, here's all the things you need to know." And I just cringe every single time I get it. And I've even checked in my profile, it's correct.
Yeah.
Because if I entered it wrong, that's on me. But no, in my profile, it's correct. And they cannot seem to figure it out. And I just, every time. And so then when they send me things like, people like you are doing this and you should do this too, it just leaves a bad taste. Like the lifecycle marketer in me stays subscribed to all these things just so that I can see it. But my real instinct is just to unsubscribe as quickly as possible. But I'm like a sucker for punishment and want to keep seeing what they're doing.
I'm the same way now, especially after doing these journey breakdowns. Whenever I see like messages, I'm just like, this will come in handy. I'm not getting rid of anything anymore.
Yeah, totally. I mean, lifecycle marketing is hard, so I don't want to call anybody out overtly, but it's those things that if you can't do it right, maybe just don't do it. And it saves everybody the hassle, frankly.
And it's like, you could just remove the name. You could just go with, "Hey,
thanks for being a valued customer."
That is such a funny, a small one. One of the things we hear again and again from brands and companies is like, they want to deliver better personalization. Like, what do you think better personalization actually looks like? And what is the best way to go about doing that?
I really think it's going to be a different answer when AI hits at scale. But absent really the ability to do that individualized, truly personalized messaging across channels, reaching customers in the most relevant way, I really think less is more often in personalization, and personalization done a little bit and done well is going to be better for most brands that are, I think if you try to throw everything at it, you feel it. And you said it earlier, it's about being seamless. It just feels natural versus when you feel a brand trying too hard, they've missed the mark. And so I think the answer to that is going to look really different when AI can actually ingest all of the right data and you can test and learn and do really cool individualized journeys. And I'm excited for that day. I think it's going to be really cool. Until we get there, I think selectively choosing those moments, like I described earlier in a program where we varied our journeys as a result of whether someone was, brand new to the enterprise or just on a new card, things like that. It's a very simple example, but it's really meaningful to just acknowledge a prior relationship and talk about something as if someone's already part of the family versus you're a brand new welcome. Like, we want you to feel the love. You've chosen this new brand for the first time. And those things are small, but they feel impactful, I think.
Yep. The details matter, sweating the details, and they add up even if you don't feel like they do. I think that is really what makes great marketing at the end of the day. Just like, if would I want to receive this? I think that's just like the ultimate litmus test. You should always ask yourself, how would I be if I was on the receiving end of this? This has been great. Thank you so much for the time. Yeah, I learned so much in this conversation. Is there anything that you just want to shout out or excited about, or where can people find you?
I'm going to shout out just learning as much as possible about AI. And, I think now's the time to just be a sponge and figure it out. And there's so many great resources out there to just learn as much as possible. I'm doing an AI certification program through a company called SmarterX that I think is just brilliant in the space. It's a year-long membership, and you can take as many certifications as you can finish in that year time, and you can renew it after that. But I just finished an AI fundamentals. I've started an AI for marketers certification. Just so much to gain in that space, and then putting that into practice and just using it in ways. Like I said, I built my first custom GPT. I'm currently doing some nonprofit consulting in the strategy and marketing space, and I think there's just so many ways to put this stuff to use. And so that's where you'll find me, is learning as much as I can about AI and starting to use it on the projects that really we can get real value out of it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.